I know we were going to talk about Millennium, but we're going to quickly go back to King Kong for a sec. So in 1976, the story basically goes as the original does. The only difference is that King Kong connects with Dwan on a more personal level, if you know what I mean. And Dwan constantly doesn't scream in fear like Ann did. He's still tragically brought to New York and shot down, but this is on the newly opened World Trade Center instead. King Kong falls to his death. Wait, no, this King Kong actually survives the fall. He slips into a 10-year coma. Once we find out there's another female Kong on Borneo, Lady Kong, as they dub her, is brought to Atlanta where Kong is held and is kept miles away. Kong needs a heart transplant but won't survive without blood of a suitable donor, and that would be Lady Kong. After the operation, Kong picks up on her scent remarkably and makes his way to her. The two live out in the outskirts, but the army ends up attacking them. All King Kong wanted to do is live in peace with his mate. They end up capturing Lady Kong, and King Kong has to fight the military. He fights them but is cornered on a cliff, forced to jump into the waters below. The rapids carry him quickly, sending him to crash his head against the rock, splitting his head open and sinking below the waters, not to be seen. Until later. As it turns out, Kong survived completely fine. Man, this Kong is one tough SOB. He gets trapped by some jerk hunters who literally abuse Kong for no reason. Like Christ, Kong literally cannot catch a break. Fortunately, he escapes and kills them. He ends up tracking his lady down, and I kid you not, he sneak attacks the military. The freaking military. He attacks them and actually wins. He breaks Lady Kong free, and the two make their way across the countryside. I didn't mention it, but throughout the film, Kong's heart is kind of failing. He's still strong enough and durable enough to pull off the feats he does, but he also lives with constant pain in his heart. If you think that's bad, Lady Kong crashes through a barn and is in labor. Just when this happens, the military arrives, and Kong has to defend his family. He does so and succeeds, but he's mortally wounded. He's taken hundreds of bullets and tank shells. This Kong is a beast. But the beast, yet again, falls to beauty. This time, well, another beast. Regardless, Kong is in his last dying moments, and as he's about to pass, baby Kong is born. Kong gets to see his son. He has one last glimmer of happiness in an otherwise sad, lonely life, and just like that, he dies a happy soul, with a smile on his face. Meanwhile, with Godzilla, we witnessed the catastrophic 1998 film. I mean, it was okay, let's be real. It ain't cool to hate anymore. And this forced Toho's Godzilla back into action with the new Millennium Era. Now, Millennium Godzilla is a bit different in that there are different incarnations of this era. Godzilla 1999 has more mysterious origins. All we know is that he's been attacking Japan after the 1954 Godzilla died. A different continuity has Godzilla, same suit, just painted green, as actually the Godzilla that attacked 1954. It's the same one, only to return in 1966 and attack a nuclear power plant. Then, 30 years later, he returns in 1996 to feed off a plasma reactor in Osaka. Now, GMK Godzilla is yet another different continuity, and this one is more of a villain than any Godzilla we have ever seen. He's basically the combined spirits of the restless souls lost in World War II due to Japan's actions. The 1954 Godzilla still happened originally, and this Godzilla is the second generation one of the GMK timeline. There are also guardian monsters who try to fight this Godzilla, but I'm telling you man, this one is straight evil. Still tragic in the sense that he's the spirits of World War II soldiers who have been forgotten in time, but completely evil nonetheless. Yet another different incarnation arrives with the Kairyu Saga's Godzilla. This one is much like the second generation Showa Godzilla in that it's part of the same species the original 1954 Godzilla was, but some theorize it may be the son of the 1954 one. This Godzilla first appears in a typhoon in 1999, and while he doesn't have that much of a backstory as other incarnations, it seems one reason he makes landfall is because Kiryu is created with the bones of the original 1954 Godzilla, and that could possibly be his father. This Godzilla isn't violent unless provoked. In the next film, Kiryu and Mothra manage to actually defeat Godzilla, but Kiryu is ordered to kill him. And unwilling to kill another member of his kind, Kiryu actually flies Godzilla out to sea and sinks with him, and the threats are eliminated for the time being. Finally, in 2004, we get Godzilla Final Wars. Oh, final, see what I did there? Okay, so this Godzilla is actually completely different. He was awakened by nuclear testing in 1954 and is pitted against humanity to seek revenge. Many monsters were unable to defeat him, until the Gotengo managed to trap him in ice. Years after years, specifically the year 2000 XX, aliens arrive and control all of Earth's monsters. Godzilla is awakened and constantly chases the Gotengo, and on his way he has to fight the monsters. Godzilla actually destroys a city in anger, and it's explained why Godzilla does it. It's because they woke him up and made him angry with the nuke, and Godzilla has never forgotten that anger he felt. Godzilla actually does spare Anguirus, Rodan, and King Caesar, which shows he does care about them since he executed the other kaiju. Godzilla then fights Monster X, who transforms into Kaiser Ghidorah, and humans actually save him here. Godzilla still shoots the Gotengo down, but after, he is going to destroy it until Minya comes in and convinces him to stand down, which he does. And so the two kaiju leave the city. That wraps up Millennium Godzilla, and while all are inherently different, excluding the Kairi Saga Goji, these Godzillas all share individual hatred, anger, and pain the humans have since brought upon them. Going back to King Kong, in 2005 we get a third remake of the classic 1933 story. And this King Kong has some of the best development of any monster in existence. It's essentially the same story, but we see that King Kong has been living alone on Skull Island for years. His species has gone extinct and he's the last of his kind. The humans would make sacrifices to King Kong, but there simply was no connection as those humans had eventually died somehow. King Kong lives alone, as we know. Every day is a fight for survival for this Kong. Every single day of his life. He constantly fights V-Rexes, Pteranodons, giant crabs, giant bats, all kinds of creatures. Until the events of the film. Andero is sacrificed to King Kong, and King Kong takes her to the killing grounds after the sacrifice. And we see this is where King Kong takes all of his sacrifices. He sort of winds himself up to kill them, but Anne is different. She manages to hit him surprisingly and escape. She's caught moments later, but once Kong realizes the crew is coming after her, he gets on the move again. But we see that his ritual is sort of broken with Anne. From getting the sacrifice to hyping himself up to the kill, Anne does what no other sacrifice did and escapes. She could have easily been one of the girls lying in a pit, but she wasn't. It isn't because she's blonde or anything basic like that, but because Kong sees Anne is different from all the other sacrifices. Actually, Philippa Boyens, the producer of the film, says this in the audio commentary for the film. Anne wakes up and sees Kong hasn't killed her yet. She tries to escape, but Kong is absolutely furious. And then the weirdest thing happens. Anne jumps into the air and scares Kong. She starts doing some tricks and Kong eventually starts laughing. So after over 100 years of isolation, of anger and grief, Kong laughs. Anne does all of these things and makes Kong genuinely happy and laughing. Now Kong takes it too far with being rough. I mean, who can blame him? Well, Anne can. But she yells and tells him to stop, and King Kong actually gets upset. He snarls and he tries to kill Anne. He really does. But he can't physically bring himself to do so. My favorite part of the audio commentary of the film is where it's discussed that Kong feels like his alpha status is actually being challenged. There's a sort of power shift between Kong and Anne. Kong tried to kill her, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. And Kong himself is shocked. She's become more powerful than he. And Kong processes this. We see him process what this means. So that's a cool little bit. Kong saves Anne from the V-Rexes and takes her to his lair. There is a cut scene where Kong is taking Anne and he grabs onto a vine, and he actually falls into a chasm. This is easily over a couple hundred feet of a drop, and Kong turns out completely fine. Whether the scene was cut or just visualized, it actually made it into the book Kong's Kingdom. And this is where the audience would have truly learned that Kong is the last of his kind. Kong gets up after the fall and looks at another creature and is surprised considering it's bigger than he is. It turns out it's a statue of another Kong. It has been so long that even King Kong forgot what other members of his kind looked like. He didn't even recognize himself in that statue. What Anne makes Kong realize is that he hadn't always been alone. When we enter his lair in the film, we get to see that all of the members of Kong's species, his family's bones, surround him. I think this right here shows King Kong is possibly the most tragic character in all of the kaiju genre. He wasn't horribly mutated like Godzilla, but he still had a family who all died when he was very young, and he was forced to not only live and grow up on this horrifying island on his own, but literally surround himself with the bones of his family members every single day of his life. As we know, Kong ends up losing Anne. He thinks Jack is hurting her and makes his escape, and when he's beaten severely, he still reaches his hand out to Anne, like as if he were saying, "Climb into my hand, we can still go back to my lair." Anne turns away, like man, she can't even look at him. We go to New York. Kong is abused, but he escapes. He finds Anne and the two spend time together before climbing up the Empire State Building. After a lengthy battle, in his final moments, he and Anne share a moment together, and she's the last thing he sees until the light goes out in his eyes as his soul leaves his body. Before we venture into the Monsterverse, we can quickly cover Shin Godzilla. I just wanted everyone to know, in case you don't, that it was stated the music of the film contains chorus lyrics that actually reflect this otherwise emotionless Godzilla's thoughts. And it's pretty dark. This Godzilla is also in a lot of pain as well. Also for King Kong and Kong the Animated Series, the character Jason actually exclaims after merging with Kong that he couldn't believe the rage Kong carries. Shin was pretty short to cover, but now we're entering the Monsterverse. Godzilla may seem like some ancient beast who only cares about nothing but his alpha status, and that was actually a complaint I had with the 2014 film. But in the 2019 film, we actually find out that Godzilla was worshipped by ancient humans. He also has the skeleton of a creature much like Anguirus in his lair he sleeps near. And whether this is due to him having an old friend he misses, or just being a random creature, is absolutely up to interpretation. One thing we do know that is super interesting is that in the art book, it stated Godzilla misses his connection he had with ancient humans, and he actually wants to reforge that connection. Yet all that modern humans have been doing was nuking him and trying to harm him, even when he tried to save the day. It's like humans don't understand what Godzilla is trying to do. Is he fighting because of his alpha status and fighting for territorial reasons? Absolutely. But he also could have been trying to save humans and actually reforge that connection he once had with them like before. That's indeed a possibility. What humans do in 2021's Godzilla vs. Kong would completely dictate how Godzilla feels about humans, but for now, he's the last of his kind, much like Kong is. Speaking of Kong, he's actually in the Monsterverse, if you didn't already know. He's actually worshipped by the Iwi as a protector and not feared like most other incarnations. He not only completely cares about them, but he's also considered the protector of all innocent life, as said by Aaron Brooks in The Birth of Kong. Kong is sentient in this universe. He understands things most other monsters wouldn't understand or recognize. For instance, like how Packard and Rishio were the ones causing the explosions and blowing up the wall, as well as protecting innocent soldiers, Aaron Brooks, and the Iwi. He's very sentient, you know? He also even cries when Weaver touches his face due to how emotionally disconnected and alone he's been for so long. And he's only a child. Not only that, but he was born in the midst of battle. His parents were slain by Godzilla-sized skull crawlers. And he's since carried this hatred, this rage and sadness since then. He chooses to avenge his parents' death and protect the smaller, weaker creatures, such as Skur Buffalo and humans. We also find out he actually goes to their gravesite and gets on his knees, paying his respects to them. As it stands, Kong protects the island and the Iwi people. Godzilla and Kong would definitely have their own reasons to fight each other, and we'll just have to wait to see where their stories will go following Godzilla vs. Kong and the prequel comics. Overall, everybody, Godzilla and King Kong are both extremely tragic characters. They're actually deeper emotional characters than many people give these monsters credit for. And I think at the end of the day, that's why they're so special to us. We care about them. I hope you all enjoyed. I'll talk to you very soon. This is King Kong 9100 signing out. Until then, bye-bye.